to the Villa podcast, back on the couch.
It feels good, mate. It feels good. It feels good.
We'll never forget where we've come from.
Absolutely not.
Here with my good friend Dan Wiseman. How you doing, Dan?
I'm very good, mate.
Good. I mean, Monday. I think we'll start there.
Absolutely.
What a night under the lights of Villa Park.
Brilliant.
Was it ever in doubt?
No, you get this feeling that it was going to be an Everton. I think is the phrase that was kind of tossed around a lot. And you have such an enhanced level of confidence. I feel when we're playing under the lights. If that game was at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, I would have felt a lot more nervous going into it. To be honest with you, and so many of the players and Dean referenced it as well that Villa Park at night is such a great place to be in. The atmosphere I didn't think was as good as in the Everton game. I think because of the nature of the goals, obviously set pieces. I think obviously goals from open play tend to trigger a better reaction from the crowd. I didn't think the atmosphere was good, but it was still great. Everyone, I thought it was a really good evening all around. To be honest with you.
Who for you would be your standout performer from that game? Because there's a few, and obviously with Sky Sports being there, it was a given that Grealish was going to be given man of the match. I think it's fair to say there's definitely a bias with Jack when he's on TV. Actually performed for once though, I feel as well.
Absolutely.
But it's magnificent. But who for you would be your man of the match? Because controversially from me, if you listen to the podcast, I'm no Conor Hourihane fan, but for me he was absolutely my man of the match.
Yeah, for me too, mate. I'm really proud of Conor, I got to say. Thanks for doing me well, mate. I've stuck up for a lot of players on this podcast. I think Conor's the only one that's actually come good.
I think so.
And so, I'm absolutely buzzing for him, mate. There was a lot of kind of pressure on Conor when he was in the Championship playing in the deepest role in that midfield, and we can finally see now that that's not where Conor's meant to play. He's meant to play as an 8. And when you're putting him in with 4 other midfielders, essentially, I think his passing really comes out. I think he's the best ball player at the club, and that really came out. That left foot is an absolute wand. I thought he pulled the strings, and again, it's just another one of the selection dilemmas that Dean faces right now. Obviously, Conor came out of the team for a couple of weeks, and I think he probably could have felt hard done by at that point, to be honest with you. But he was immense the other night. He's just having him on. He's almost worth having on the set pitch, like the piece. It's almost worth having on the pitch alone just for set pieces, because when he's not on the pitch, we struggle to find a set piece taker. But I mean, if we've got a set piece within 30-35 yards, you always feel like there's something going to happen there.
Definitely, and Steve Bruce definitely did as well, because we saw him on the touchline frantically telling his wall to shift over because it's going top left. Dubravka didn't organise his wall very well. Didn't have a little bit of antics from Jack and Conor moving the ball slightly, and then with the sort of layoff, but absolutely magnificent goal and set up as well for the next one. Two assists, well, a goal and an assist in quick time, and both from set pieces, both from fouls from Jack Grealish. Now, Grealish is a phenomenal player, and I feel like people are finally starting to see that now.
Yeah.
And whilst it's nice to see other people, big him up and stuff, I think notably as well, Harry Redknapp the other day on Talk Sport saying how magnificent he was. Why do people keep persistent on fouling Jack? Because 2 fouls led to 2 free kicks, which led to a goal and assist from Conor Hourihane.
Absolutely. I think we are going to start to see a change in the way that teams approach Jack Grealish now. I think, as you said, now that it seems that the wider footballing community is finally starting to be convinced, I think his reputation is only growing and growing, and that England call-up surely can't be far away. And so teams have to start to kind of wise up, because with players like that, normally fouling them is the way to deal with them, when you've got a player of Jack's capabilities, because taking the ball off him clean is just not an option. And so the players have really got to try and think about how they face Grealish, and this is potentially where he starts to deal with other issues in his game, whereby if defenders are backing off him, as we saw at times in the Newcastle game, he has to improve his shot. And the end product, the assists are there, and the killer ball and that final pass is there, but the shot, the amount of times we see Jack open up his body and roll one straight down the keeper's throat is it's not frustrating, because Jack is the least frustrating player in this team. He's the hub of it, but you know that he's got the capability to do better in these situations. We've seen him score some worldies, and if he can pick out volleys from the edge of the box from corner kicks, you'd like to think he can bend one in the bottom corner from 20 yards or so, and if teams are going to be kind of hesitant to foul him, you perhaps want to see him add that element to his game.
Definitely, and I think touching on sort of on Jack and McGinn being maybe the duo that people look at. Certainly, Sky Sports, everyone loves John McGinn. I don't think there's a single person who isn't a Villa fan that doesn't rate McGinn. I'm starting to think that Jack and Conor is maybe a partnership that is unorthodox in terms of Jack's position, and maybe even Conor being in the team in general, because you've got so many strong midfielders. But there's a triangle on that left-hand side of the pitch of Jack, Conor and Matt Targett, and it's so fluid. And when you're playing counter-attacking football, countless times where Wes would have the ball, he'd come in deep like he does, he lays it off to Conor, and then it's just liquid football between them three on that left-hand side. I'm feeling like this is Conor Hourihane's position in the team now. It's his to lose now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has done so well to get in the team, and you don't hear me say that very often. Like, Conor Hourihane has proved me wrong. I've gone on the record on Twitter, even on the podcast, but that little free for me. I mean, there's parts of all of their games that they can improve on, but it's just so fluid.
Yeah, mate, it's brilliant, and they're all so technical. And John, you mentioned John there, and there was a point in this season where I was like, okay, I think John McGinn's the star player here. I think he might starting to be eclipsing Jack in terms of his performances. And there's I said to a few people that Jack's not the one you need to watch, it's John McGinn. Not only has that been completely reversed, I think John has got a couple of games now where I think he's been fairly unremarkable. He comes out every now and again and like there's a 40-yard crossfield ball, or he wriggles out of a tight scenario like we've seen him do so many times. And it kind of reminds you that, oh yeah, he's still class, don't worry. But it's not there as consistently, and I think obviously we had that little spell where Jack was out and kind of enabled John to be that creative hub in the midfield. But yeah, I mean, Conor's performing really well, Jack's performing really well. I thought Douglas, in a midfield where all of them played so well, it's very easy to underrate Douglas's performance from the other night, but I thought he was really good, and a couple of instances where he needs to hurry himself up a little bit. I think Douglas, got caught in a few man-on situations, but no, John's kind of, not going to say look over his shoulder as such, but there's a lot of hungry midfielders in that side.
Definitely, and I think as well, touching slightly on Douglas there, it kind of shows that Dean isn't afraid to change things for different oppositions, because it was clear that this was a game for Douglas Luiz where we'd have a lot of the ball and he'd have time to dictate, and obviously there were instances where he did need to sort of get his head up and look for the pass instead of trying to just let the ball run across his body and stuff. But as you said, McGinn, even Hourihane, like he can't just expect to start come Sunday, because for all we know, we're away from home, and we know Douglas kind of has to play for his work permit at points. Sunday's definitely more of a game for Marvellous.
Yeah.
So you could see Conor easily lose his position there. So I think no one's really safe. I think the only person at the moment who's safe is Tom Heaton.
Yeah.
In this Aston Villa squad. I think now we'll look at a few questions that we had come in on Twitter. One from Jamie App. Jamie, I'll see you at United at the weekend. Do you think Konsa is staking a claim to keep Engels out of the team at the moment, or does Engels go straight back in on his return? Interesting conversation. We touched on this a bit before. Obviously, Bjorn Engels, we've praised him so much on this podcast. A bit of an unknown quantity before he came. Was it £7.5 million he joined for as well? Absolute revelation. But Ezri Konsa as well.
Yeah.
How good has he been, mate?
Wow. And yeah, like he came into the Wolves game. I've got to be honest with you. I saw him and Oyan at a point, and I was like, oh my god, here we go. This is going to be a nightmare, because we had kind of two new faces in there coming into a big game. But boy, they both performed really well, and as we were coming into the game on Monday night, I didn't have any concerns. He's been impressive in the cup, but the kind of Wolves game, I was a bit worried for him, but he was immense. And in answer to Jamie's question, perhaps it's not Bjorn who kind of should be worried. I think, I mentioned it before on the pod that I do think Ty's fallen off a little bit since that first England call-up. I think he started slowly against Newcastle. There's a few sloppy bits here and there, a few misplaced passes, but he grew into the game and he got a lot better. But Ezri Konsa is performing Tyrone Mings right now, and I think before Bjorn's injury, Bjorn was outperforming Tyrone as well in those couple of games. So I mean, it's going to take a lot to drop Ty, especially now he seems to be an England regular
in the squad at least.
Yeah. But it's an interesting one in that regard because there's 3 very good centre backs there.
Definitely. Ezri's enjoyed such a good run in the team. He'll be gutted for Bjorn on a personal level, but you know when it comes to game time, it's hard to get in, especially as a young lad who's just come to the club in the Premier League, and he's stepped in so well. And I think interestingly as well, one of the things he said when he joined was he was attracted by obviously the club, which stock answer, but John Terry, and it's clear to see that where we've perhaps, I know you have doubted his work before, it's with the centre backs.
Absolutely.
Coming on leaps and bounds. We've both said before that we trust Ezri and House coming in. I think they could. That's a partnership for the bottom half of the Premier League at least.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Now we'll go on to a question from Callum Richardson. Newcastle looked incredibly poor on Monday night, and surprised. If I would be surprised if they get over 40 points. Which other teams do you think will finish below us?
That's a very good question. It's a very good question. And Newcastle were dire the other night. Their front 3 was just. It was really good in transition, I will say. And then once they entered the final third, it just completely capitulated. I thought Joel Moran, wow.
That's what we'll call it.
Joel Linton, Almiron and St Maximin were all as bad as each other. And so yeah, Newcastle are definitely a team that are going to struggle this season. Like they were kind of picking up form before the Villa game, and everyone was going, oh, you know, Bruce is doing alright, he's going to keep them up. And I had my doubts, and when push comes to shove in those kind of games, Bruce's kind of resilience to change and that kind of, so you got to look at them. Norwich are, I know they won at Everton, but Norwich are fairly doomed, I would say. Watford, you kind of
take another sacking for them, isn't it?
Absolutely,
playing.
Absolutely. It's such a bizarre managerial appointing Sanchez Flores, and so they're down there. And look, there's far many worse teams. I mean, Southampton. Can you lose 9-0 at home in a season and stay up? Really? I think once that happens, you are done. Yeah, that doesn't happen. You don't lose 9-0 at home and then manage to stay in the league. I think they've really got to look out, despite a win at Arsenal. And so yeah, we're far from being one of the 3 worst teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean we showed that, and we played magnificently, I thought, and we've got to take into consideration it was Newcastle. They were poor. They did beat Spurs and Man United, but then again, if you look at them 2 games, it was Joelinton's only goal for Spurs against the run of play, really, and it was the same against Man United. You know, Matty Longstaff, I think it was, of the Longstaff brothers who scored, and whilst that is a great story in itself, let's be honest, United are a bit of a joke anyway, so you can, saying that now, we'll get done by the weekend. I've absolutely cursed it for us. But, you know, you can go there against United and there's always something up for grabs, and I feel like if Newcastle wanted to stay up, then they would have done a lot more than they did on the Monday night, because they keep saying they were chanting towards the end, how shit must you be, we're above you, which, you know, is all in good jest, but come the end of the season, there is absolutely no way Newcastle are going to be above us. No, absolutely no way.
No, I can't see that. And yeah, I mean, this is we have to look kind of around us. We're moved up to 15th as a result of Monday night, which is a position that I thought we'd finish in at the end of the season. I still maintain that, to be honest with you. But you know, we're capable of, you know, bar goal difference and results, I think we're in touch of 9th within 3 points. And so the bottom half is going to be so tight, and there's still a hell of a lot of Premier League football to be played. A lot of things can change, but you know, you can certainly single out more than a few teams that are in concerning positions, and Everton and West Ham are 2 other teams as well that you have to consider in this bracket. Unfortunately, you know, 2 very talented squads, 2 very talented managers, but it's not working right now. We're definitely in a better place than both of those clubs, so potentially you can evolve those and then got a conversation as well.
It's interesting as well because, I mean, before Everton came to Villa Park, they had the best defensive record in the league. They were without a win, I believe, but they looked difficult to break down. I mean, I weren't here for that game, but obviously 2-0 at home under the lights. I mean, a brilliant goal from Anwar at the end, wasn't it? And since then, they've really not been on it, not at all. And even West Ham, they were up to 3rd when they played us, and I thought we made a very good account for ourselves against West Ham. Yeah. And they didn't look terrible, to be fair, when they came to Villa Park. I thought we could have beaten them, but they're in such a weird place right now, aren't they? And I think, I mean, going off on a bit of a tangent on West Ham, that's down to Roberto in goal, isn't it? I mean, he's an awful goalkeeper. I watched him against Spurs the other day. Terrible. But you know, going back on track with more mediocrity, Manchester United.
Yeah.
Against Sheffield United down on Sunday, 3-3, come back from 2-0 down, 3-2 up, and they decide to bring on our beloved Axel Tuanzebe.
Please come home, Axel.
Please. I mean, but where's he going, mate? Stay there. But what a weird substitution to make when you're chasing a game and you're trying to close it out.
Mate, the comeback in that game is largely irrelevant for me, because United, the body language. I mean, I'm going to take it right back to the start of the game. The way that Sky Sports do the lineups now, and you see it on TV, and they kind of brought up the midfield four, and it was Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Fred, Andreas Pereira, and Brandon Williams. That was the midfield four. It was a 3-4-3.
Two of them were fullbacks.
Yeah. Brandon Williams, Pereira, Fred, and Wan-Bissaka, and that's awful. It's terrible. The body language of the United players when they were losing was terrible, and yes, they rallied behind it, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer pointing his head like that, like trying to kind of.
You're not Jose, mate. Come on, allow it.
Not a fan of that. Look, the comeback's irrelevant. United are there for the taking. Go at them, make them uncomfortable. You know, get them on each other's backs, get the fans riled up. Because there's mistakes, there's a lack of confidence, there's a lack of faith in their own ability and in the players around them. Phil Jones, mate, I'm not even going to touch on that because it actually incenses me how Axel isn't playing for Manchester United.
Yeah.
I think that could be another factor to the game, and I think we could potentially see Axel filling the centre back. Well, because I can't see how Jones can start after the other night.
I mean, he's got a lot of loyalty in some players. Day by day, the decision to loan out Chris Smalling looks even more ridiculous, doesn't it? Especially with his goal and 2 assists the other day, and then his 95% pass completion for Roma. What?
Yeah, I tell you what, mate. They lost Manolas obviously in the summer, and Smalling went out there, and I was like,
weird transfer, innit? English players don't go abroad.
But we're starting to see now, and again, this is another tangent, but kind of them. The clubs like United and the pressure that those clubs put on their players. Same with trips at Spurs moving to Atletico. They just, once they take the pressure off and they can enjoy football in a new surrounding, you see the difference it can make. And that negative environment that United is just so engulfed in at the moment, from head to toe, has to be something that we can take advantage of. And honestly, I look at United as a fixture where we can genuinely go and get a result there. Like, you know, we go and take a point or potentially 3. Who knows?
Definitely. I think as well, United were. It shouldn't have ever been in doubt that United would come back against Sheffield United. I think because we're still forgetting. We grew up in a time where Man United dominated the Premier League, and it's hilarious to see how far they've gone, and it really is. And as fantastic as Sheffield United have been, and as brilliant as Chris Wilder has been, and we've both gone on the record and said he's fantastic, and Sheffield United were the one to look at about the 3 of us, obviously other than Villa, that came up. Sheffield United should never be in that position where they're 2-0 up at home against Manchester United. Like, it's like we are living in the Matrix. Like, this is a simulation, mate.
It was a parallel universe. It really was, because Sheffield United in 5th, United in 14th, I think. That's the wrong way around for one. Like, and you know, again, I'm talking purely on paper. I mean, this season obviously makes perfect sense, but when you look at the two sides, the size of the clubs, it's such a bizarre situation. And I look at that United team, mate, and Rashford was starting to get frustrated. Harry Maguire was starting to get frustrated. De Gea made some good saves, he's kind of coming back to his form, but that midfield is so fragile, and there still isn't a workable front 3 there. I don't think they're certainly not firing on all cylinders. Like I said, the comeback doesn't frighten me. You know, it really doesn't. Like, whether they'd lost that game, I still would have been talking United in the same way.
Who are you looking at in our squad that is going to be the main sort of disruptor? I think all fingers point towards Grealish.
Yeah.
In a game like this, it'll be interesting though, because as you say, Manchester United against Sheffield United played in a back 3.
Yeah.
And so did Newcastle and so did Wolves. And I mean, there were times where Newcastle, they had 7 men back and they looked pretty impenetrable at the start of the game. As good as we were, there's only so much you can do when they've got that many men behind the ball.
Yeah.
And obviously the 3 at the back post, so many problems against Wolves. Do you think that that's a system that United are going to operate with at home? Because it's quite a negative way to set up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially against little old Aston Villa, as I'd see it.
Absolutely. I think it's so hard to predict how United line up nowadays. It's genuinely impossible, and I think that's probably the biggest flaw of Ollie, is that he's failed to create an identity at Manchester United. That there's no clear 11 there. It's kind of Ollie bingo as to who gets in that starting 11. To be honest with you, anyone can play, and it does lend itself, and these United are going to see it as a chance to really go out, and it's a kind of United are going to see it as a must-win game, because we were good on Monday night, but we weren't at our best. I think it's fair to say. I think from open play, we didn't create too much, but no, look. The wingers have a big role to play. That midfield is there's no defensive hub there. If we take the one that they lined up with the other day, because who knows what it could be on Sunday. If we're working on Fred and Pereira, who's stopping Grealish, kind of marauding into the middle and causing havoc up against that back 4, back 3, whatever they choose to line up with? No one. I think Jack could have an absolute field day there, mate. And I know it's easy to pick him out as the key man because he is most weeks, but in this game more than most, especially on the big stage, Grealish can really make a name for himself.
I've got this feeling, mate. Anwar, every week
he's
been, there's levels, and we've kind of there's been all this talk about £72 million for Nicolas Pepe, and about 5, let's say, we paid for Anwar, and he's got 3 goals in the Premier League and 2 assists, and Pepe's only got 2 and 1.
Yeah, and
both come from the same place.
Anwar is a brilliant player. That goal against Burnley is criminally underrated.
Yeah,
criminally underrated.
He took that so well.
Unbelievably, and he's just playing with all the confidence in the world. And I was saying to you that I don't think it'll be long before the Dutch side come looking, because he's doing it in the hardest league in the world against some very good teams. He's finally got that mojo, because Anwar is a player that's so reliant on confidence.
Yeah.
His game is taking players on, cutting inside, having the self-belief that he can stick a shot away or beat his man, or whatever he chooses to do. And he's finally got that confidence. There's that swagger about him. There's the arrogance, and he's great, mate. And I really like Anwar. I really do. I think he's been quite an underrated player in this side in recent weeks, but he's just as young and just as exciting as anyone we've got, in my opinion. And
there's just something about being at Old Trafford, Dutch players, obviously, your Ruud van Nistelrooy, Edwin van der Sar,
RVPs, yeah.
RVP, it's almost as if the stage is set up for Anwar to have an absolute masterclass, mate. Theatre of dreams, as it's called.
Absolutely.
Hopefully it'll be a theatre of nightmares for Manchester United. I look at the defence as well, and I think this is probably going to be, since Liverpool obviously, and City to a certain extent, where the front 3, regardless of who they choose and what, there's going to be a lot of pace there, and it's going to be, especially if Konsa starts again, it's going to be interesting to see how they cope. Obviously, Mings has been in the England setup now, so I'm sure he knows how to deal with Marcus Rashford. But on his day, Anthony Martial can be a very dangerous player, and I think he's often overlooked a lot. I mean, he was Mbappe before Mbappe, wasn't he? I mean, he was a fantastic prospect at Monaco, and for one reason or another, it's not worked out at Manchester United for him.
Almost came to the Villa.
I mean, how amazing would that have been, mate? That's a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it'll be an interesting test for the defence, especially when you're looking at Target. I mean, Target put himself about incredibly well getting forward, and when he went down, obviously it's well documented now that he was sick, but we couldn't really tell what had gone on, and my dad actually said to me, he was like, oh, he's busted a lung getting up there, and ironically there he is puking on the floor. So it's going to be interesting, because as well, especially if you look at the fullbacks, obviously, there's Brandon Williams, I think you say started left wing back the other day. Could be facing Ashley Young, Gilbert. That is obviously that'll be on his side, and then you've got Wan-Bissaka, who I don't know what to make of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, to be perfectly honest, mate. He's a statistician's dream, innit, when you look at the tackles, interceptions and stuff, but I feel like every time I've seen him play, he's just been another right back.
Yeah, this is one of the concerns that I had with Wan-Bissaka when he joined Man United, was that all these tackles, all these interceptions, but you're not going to be having to make that many tackles, that many interceptions when you're at Manchester United. And I had concerns about him going forward, because when you're at Man United, it's alright being a good defensive fullback at Crystal Palace, no disrespect to Palace, but at Man United there's so much emphasis on a fullback to be able to get forward, they naturally spend more time attacking than most teams do in the Premier League, so there is more onus on the fullbacks to kind of pitch in with that. I had his concerns, but I mean, we've dealt with so many tricky wingers in the last few weeks, like Adama, like Saint-Maximin, like Almiron, and Adama had a bit purchased, to be fair, against Matt Target, but he's not the best defender in the world, Matt Target, and so that kind of lends itself. But you look at Dan James, Martial, and I'm feeling pretty good about our defence right now. The clean sheet is quite an understated element of the win on Monday night, to be honest with you. The defence looked good, and Tom Heaton, game by game, just proves what a buy he was as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from Man U as well, I believe, product of their academy. It's one of them ones where when you're looking to build a club on the in the long run and establish yourself in the Premier League, which we are doing. We're in the Premier League. We feel like we could stay up, but obviously that's the goal is literally just to finish 17th, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is, at the end of the day, we stay 17th. Dean's done his job. Purslow, Sousa, everyone has done their job, and there can be no complaints. Yeah. Exactly. And Tom Heaton is a sign in that he's the difference between 17 and 18.
Yeah.
And I mean, even with the way we're performing, it could be the difference between 17 and 12. He is that save he had to make as well from the header from I believe Yedlin, where he headed it down, and he didn't really have that much time to react. Absolutely magnificent save. But then looking on the flip side as well, obviously someone who we've invested in, going to Old Trafford, it's 2 o'clock kickoff, I believe, it'll be on Sky. There's been a lot of talk about John McGinn to Old Trafford, isn't there? And even, your likes of Alan Brazil trying to sell Mings and Grealish there. I mean, come on now. But I mean, Purslow came out the other day, didn't he? And actually said on TalkSport with Jim White that none of these players are for sale. But it's going to be such a good opportunity for them to even, because I mean, let's be honest, and Purslow said it himself as well. They're kind of writing their own checkbooks, aren't they, the players? So it's a perfect opportunity for the players to do that come Sunday, innit? Against, because United haven't been very good, but it's fair to say that. But a win against Manchester United in your first season in the Premier League, like returning, absolutely magnificent, innit? I think we've not beaten them in 40 games.
Yeah.
We've only beaten them once in 40 games.
It's we always seem to, like, because for most teams in the Premier League, I was about to say we always struggle against Manchester United, but that's kind of the nature of the Premier League, to be honest with you. But there have been so many games where we've had the lead against Manchester United and we've ended up throwing it away. I can think to so many, especially at Villa Park. I remember Hernandez scoring in that 2-2. I remember when Andy Weimann scored that goal after Benteke put Smalling on his arse.
The Benteke bounce, iconic.
How could you forget? And these are games where you really kind of announce yourself, and for John especially, who I don't really believe there was too much in that 50 million to Man United, to be honest with you. I think that's just the sun being the sun. I don't think there's too much in that, but it's just a big chance for him to prove himself. And I think that there is kind of rumours that Fergie's a fan, but
it's a weak connection in
Scotland. I think that's all it is, to be honest with you. I think if Fergie wasn't Scottish, I think that we don't hear anything like that. I think it's only because they're of the same nationality that people have gone, well, he must like him then.
Oh, of course.
He likes Celtic and they're both Scottish, so they must rate each other. I don't really buy into it, to be honest with you, mate. But John's going to want to show up, and Man United are still a massive scout, but it's still working out at Old Trafford will be a lot of what these players signed for in the summer. You know, the chance to go and play at Old Trafford, to go and play at these Anfield and these kind of grounds, and really make a name for yourself. And we've shown it well in these big games so far. We're no slouch. We've shown that we can play against the big sides and we can go toe to toe with them. United will be wary of that, and I think rightly so. But I don't know. I've got a good feeling about it, mate.
On that note, Dan, what is your prediction for the game?
I'm going to go with... I think we're going with 2-1.
2-1?
Yes.
Any goal scorers?
I think we're going to see... I want John on the score sheet, and I'll back the big man to do the business, just as he did at the Emirates. Big Wes.
Big Wes.
R9 Wes. El Fenomeno, my son. 23-year-old as well now, after his birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Coming off the back of that Brazil call-up, birthday, should have had a goal against Newcastle, back with a vengeance, back to Old Trafford. What about you?
Mate. Do you know what? My heart says 2-1. I think, being pragmatic, 2-2. I think there's goals there for both teams, to be quite honest.
100%.
But you know, I think if we can catch them off guard, as Sheffield United did,
who knows?
There is no reason why we can't get anything.
Absolutely.
So that has been the podcast. Back on the sofa.
Feels good, man. Feels good.
Only right half a mile down the road at the weekend.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a good one. I think we're meeting up with fans, but actually for that one,
be good.
So yeah, that will be nice. If you enjoyed the podcast, hit the like button and comment your thoughts below. Do you think we'll beat Manchester United? Were you impressed with our win on Monday? Let us know. Dan, any final words from you, mate?
Don't think so. For once. Strange.
We're close actually to 1,600 subscribers.
There we go.
We're 9 subscribers off. Been growing nicely actually. I think Dom's B6B got us about 15 subs the other night. So well done to Dom. If you're enjoying the content, please do subscribe. You know, I think this season's our season, Dan.
Absolutely. This is big.
This is big for us. So yeah, if you enjoyed, subscribe, and we'll be back. We'll probably do one immediately after the game on Sunday, won't we?
Yeah, sounds good.
So we can get it right out. So yeah, post-match reactions with us.
Come on, guys. You expect the best by this point, surely.
What more do you want? Up the Villa.
Just as essential to fulfilling this got potential. It's a main man, a hero. He's the main leader of the gang.